This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, an absolutely horrific scenario in the state of Utah. Just a short time, a very short time, as a matter of fact, after Real Talk presents our episode, our exclusive with Prime Minister Mark Carney, the global, basically the headlines and the global attention turns to a horrific shooting, an assassination, a political assassination in the United States at Utah Valley University, as a 31-year-old right-wing political activist and organizer Charlie Kirk is shot dead while speaking to thousands of university students as we speak to you on this Thursday, the 11th of September. The FBI has confirmed that they believe that the FBI believes that the murder weapon has been found, but the killer is still at large. Utah's governor vowing to track down this killer, reminding Americans in an address to the nation that Utah still has the death penalty. This is a killing that has certainly shocked the nation, regardless of how people vote or what podcasts people listen to, and has drawn condemnation, an outpouring of grief and support for Charlie Kirk's family from politicians across the political spectrum, including former presidents Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and obviously the current president, Donald Trump, who posted on his Truth Social just a short time after Charlie Kirk was murdered. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk, says the president of the United States, is dead. Wrote Trump, "No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me," says Trump. And now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you. This story, obviously causing ripples. I think it's fair to say more than that. Probably waves of concern from folks who wonder what the implications will be, where this goes from now in a nation that is grappling with political uncertainty and political violence like it has not seen in quite some time. Charlie Kirk's killing in Utah, a Minnesota Democrat killed in their home, attempts on President Donald Trump's life through that most recent election campaign, which you will, of course, remember, and an assassination attempt on the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania. We'll be getting to your comments today in our Real Talk live chat. We'll get to your emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com on what this does to the political temperature in the United States and beyond. Kirk's killing, obviously, responded to by many prominent Canadians as well, including the leader of the official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, and later in the day, Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney. Politico's Ottawa bureau chief, Nick Taylor-Vaisey, is in our home province of Alberta as we speak, covering the national caucus meetings with the Liberal Party of Canada. That's what the Prime Minister was on his way to attend after he spoke with us. And Nick, obviously, we'll talk Canadian politics today. We'll talk about Mark Carney and his plan. We'll talk about this major projects office. Welcome to the Real Talk studio. It's nice to see you again. We reached out to each other shortly after this news was confirmed on Charlie Kirk's assassination and said, well, I guess our lead has changed. We're going to be talking about something different out of the gates. You work in journalism. You've obviously, been watching these developments just like hundreds of millions of other people. Where's your head at hours after the tragedy?
Well, thanks for having me. It's always great to be in the studio. When you ran down the list, when you talk about the attempt on Donald Trump's life, a Minnesota lawmaker, I mean, it's not that people are desensitized to this stuff. That's absolutely not the case. Yesterday was an eye-opening moment, a scary moment. I got texts from people who are conservative and who are outspoken, who said this scared me. I mean, they're not saying it could be them, but they're saying it's people they believe in, and so it struck fear into people in a way. But it's not desensitizing, but it's starting to feel regular. which is even scarier. I mean, it's sort of like mass shootings, right? I mean, every time there's a mass shooting now that makes the news in an American city, of course there's an outpouring of grief and support for families and victims. But then we also, a lot of us will say, yeah, well, that's what happens.
Until they do something about it, or until there's meaningful gun reform.
It's a feature, not a bug, of the news cycle. Anyway, maybe not of society. I don't want to go that far, but these are things that just happen, and so we expect that to a degree. And I don't think we should expect assassinations as they're characterized in the case of Charlie Kirk too. But it's not that it's not surprising. But where my head is at is this is the kind of thing that happens now.
Yeah. Shortly after it happened, as a matter of fact, how I found out about it, I had my nose buried in other stuff. Obviously, it goes after a big interview. We've had the Prime Minister in. We're working on pulling highlights. I'm not really paying attention to what the news cycle is doing. A friend of mine, who I know would not be a Republican were he an American, but he's a reasonable guy. He sent me back-to-back screen grabs, one of them from Newsweek. This was an article from April 6th, 2023, from a couple of years ago. Here it is on my phone. Charlie Kirk says gun deaths unfortunately worth it to keep the Second Amendment. The second screen grab he sends me is obviously news coverage of what unfolded at Utah Valley University. Now, I'm not to suggest that my friend was saying that this was justified. This was not an aha moment, but there is that kind of, that punches you in the face, right? That there are many Americans, and I don't want to make this just about guns, because this is about way more than just guns. But something like this, I think you would hope would get Americans talking again about the access to firearms, that sort of gun culture that we talk about, the videos. And to our Real Talk audience, we won't be showing the video of Kirk's murder. I know that many people have seen it online. The kind of the reality of everybody having phones with cameras on them these days is that the murder was captured by many people from many different angles. There are thousands of people today that were there, that are in shock, that will experience trauma, that will be impacted, some of them for the rest of their lives. The images of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people fleeing and screaming as his private security team tries to get him into an SUV. They try to get him to hospital. Doctors reportedly tried to save him. It was too late, but you wonder now, people on campuses, people with, beliefs that may not fit either the mainstream or may not fit the belief structure or the belief system of those who would oppose them, and they would seek their demise. It puts a chill, not just over an entire nation, but beyond.
Well, I think 10 years ago, maybe, but definitely 20 years ago, if this had happened, we might not expect there to be this sort of uncertainty about exactly what's going to happen next. It feels like horrible events happened, and then there were reactions, and there were copycat. Whatever. In this case, now that in the world we live in, you just mentioned, so many people saw the actual video of this, like a really distressing, scary, bad thing for any human being to witness.
And I think maybe some people saw it without even realizing what they were about to see.
It
pops up on their social feeds, and all of a sudden you've seen someone killed in cold blood.
And then the way information flows these days, you don't know how people are going to react and what's going to happen next, and what people who believe deeply in Charlie Kirk will do. Now, of course, there's not just one reaction, and I'm not suggesting there's going to be a civil war in the United States because of this, but you don't know exactly where this goes. Where I think years and years ago, when we didn't have 50 apps on our phone constantly broadcasting various unverified information to us, and where it wasn't so easy to talk to literally anybody, maybe it would have been a bit calmer. And now there's just the sense of the day after is, man, what happens next? And he's being lionized by the president and by the U.S. Secretary of Defense and by people with huge audiences and supreme influence and power.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, like the president of the United States, who, let's be real, may not be in office had Charlie Kirk not mobilized the youth vote like he did. They credit him for raising millions of dollars and enormous support in Arizona, which was really big. And there are a number of examples. I mean, Trump, one who is somewhat reticent to give credit oftentimes where it is due, openly and glowingly credited Charlie Kirk for his political success. Says we had 37% of the youth vote. Trump, I remember, it was shortly after the election, said something along the lines of Republicans always lose the youth vote.
Yeah.
He says we won it by 37%, but for him to call him great and legendary, I think it goes a long way. You touch on something here, and Charlie Kirk, I think probably one of the biggest reasons why he did connect with, in particular, a young white male audience. That's not to say that was exclusively his audience, but this was who he connected with.
Yeah.
It's not unlike, the audience may be a little older, but it's not unlike someone like Jordan Peterson or someone like Ben Shapiro, where you look at them and they've built this. Joe Rogan is probably another example, along perhaps different lines. Rogan not as intimately involved or actively involved politically speaking, but an audience that found its perspectives or its insecurities or its gripes, its frustrations, its causes for anger, well articulated by someone with a very gregarious personality. But he did argue for, it's fair to assign that right-wing logo. And this is in no way going to lead towards some sort of justification for political violence. Let's state, like, political violence or violence of any kind is obviously always unacceptable, and it must be condemned,
right.
Including when it involves your political opponents. But this was a guy that, was an anti-vaxxer, was a truther around the previous election results. The Biden win, did not take those election results to be valid. Sort of had very conservative, or some might call them archaic views, to editorialize that on the role of women in the home or the traditional family structure. Obviously strong evangelical beliefs, and that's being reflected in a lot of the sympathies that are being shared by both prominent people and members of everyday society. But you've got political opponents that would have sought to see Charlie Kirk silenced. And you will have millions of people now who feel as though their spokesperson, their representative, their guy was silenced, and now they'll be looking to what's next for them. You feel almost like your heart's in your throat.
Yeah. The one thing that Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Charlie Kirk, and a few others have in common, all the people you mentioned, is this intense loyalty among their fans. Like the way my parents' generation probably thought about Walter Cronkite. And now Charlie Kirk never pretended to be Walter Cronkite. He was not an unbiased anchor guiding a country through a war in Vietnam, right? He was a culture warrior. But boy, the loyalty there doesn't exist really to the same degree when we're talking about mainstream network anchors anymore. Those traditional voices, right? Like the mainstream media's relationship with the culture broadly is just different. And we may have varying levels of trust depending on the news outlet. I hope people trust what Politico has to say, because we work really hard on connecting with our audience and building that trust. But Charlie Kirk and people like him have achieved that to, they just audience in the palm of their hand.
I'll let our audience know that if they go to Politico.com, they can read your team's coverage. Your colleagues, Adam Wren and Holly Otterbein, have written a piece, Can America Unwind Its Gordian Knot of Political Violence? Comprehensive coverage with the team at Politico, how Charlie Kirk's influence turned the GOP on its head. A new dark normal of political violence shocks the nation, writes your colleague Kyle Cheney. A new dark normal. Yeah. What an effective way to put it. Others, a true friend, J.D. Vance and his wife traveling to Utah to visit Charlie Kirk's family. Lawmakers calling for more security after the Kirk killing. No kidding, right?
Yeah.
You look at this. I was thinking about this, and I'm, obviously, this show and Charlie Kirk's platform have very different audiences in scope and scale. But even following our interview with the Prime Minister, with Mark Carney, on the 10th of September, he posted about it from his account. We'll get some trolls. We'll get some chirping. Most of it's actually kind of entertaining when we post.
Sure.
But when the Prime Minister posts about it, the replies, I had to turn off my notifications yesterday. I stopped reading the replies. And anything, by the way, to Real Talkers that you may have sent us, I'm sorry, was buried in the noise because there are thousands and thousands of replies, and many of them, respectfully, are unhinged. And it even caused me a little bit of, you kind of wonder, you're reading from all these people. I clicked on a couple of the profiles. I couldn't help myself. There's horrific content on there. And you sort of think, gosh, anybody here, anybody with a Twitter account has the ability to pick up a weapon or to find some way to inflict harm on someone else and ambush them when they least expect it. You think that Charlie Kirk was expecting to get shot at long range in the neck and killed at Utah Valley University in front of a very friendly crowd? I doubt it. But do you think that other polarizing public figures right now today are probably reevaluating their plans to go meet with members of the public, reevaluating the security protocol? You better believe they are.
They'd be crazy not to. They have to rethink that. I mean, how could they not? Even for just their own, even if there's no active threat, for their own peace of mind. I mean, it's an unimaginable thing even to conceive of being an outcome. It's the worst, obviously the worst case scenario, like to go up and have something to say and then pay the ultimate sacrifice for it.
And we don't know the motivation of the killer. We don't know who the killer is.
That's right.
There was a moment, and this was reported by the National shortly before, like very shortly before he was killed. An audience member asked into a microphone, "Do you know how many mass shooters in the United States, or what proportion of mass shooters in the United States have been transgender?" And he says, "Too many." And then applause erupts.
Yep.
And then he's killed. Now, I'm sure the FBI is exploring everything. This is not to turn this into something it's not. That's anecdotal. But, I mean, you just, at the end of the day, I guess, people are probably, once the shock may start to wear off, and for some people it never will, but you start to wonder, again, and I think that your team is doing a good job of this, can America unwind this? Not. Can politics ever return to normal? Can politics ever return to a little bit boring? Will the temperature ever drop? And I'm not just talking about the United States. We've not seen something like this, thank God, in Canada, but we have seen prime ministers attacked. We have, obviously, the Trudeau residence was compromised by a man who blasted through the gate with a pickup truck some time ago. Jacques Chrétien was accosted, of course. But typically, we're used to our politics being a little bit more boring in Canada. But you get the sense that the switch could flick and things could change, and that's got to unnerve everybody.
Well, when Prime Minister Chrétien had that incident in his house,
the Schwinnigan handshake, or the other one.
There was the one inside the house at 24 Sussex.
That's right.
But because of the times, that ended up as, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't fun in the moment for the Prime Minister and his wife, but who, if I recall correctly, was the real hero that night with the intruder. But that ended up being kind of like a lighthearted thing because it's that particular Prime Minister who had active hands when protesters got close to him. And because nothing went totally sideways, he ended up fine. Eileen ended up fine. And then everyone kind of laughs about it later. Like, well, that's what happened to a guy like him. Of course he took care of business. Of course his wife took care of business. They were the Chrétiens. Now it's different. Can you remember the last time we said, these are political normal times?
No.
I mean
when we called for more excitement or better clips, better highlights from politicians. By the way, that was the 4th of November. This was posted. This is the CBC archives. They shared this the 5th of November, 1995 is when the story was originally reported.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Jean Chrétien telling reporters he was lucky to have his wife Eileen on the case when a knife-wielding intruder broke into the home. This is the Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah.
But that an understatement, writes the journalist. An alert that Eileen Chrétien, who woke up, spotted the uninvited guest, a knife-wielding guest, and took swift steps to protect her husband and herself. The RCMP, on the other hand, had missed the intruder's actual entry onto the grounds.
She picked something up, right? She
This is wild.
Yeah. But it became this sort of, well, haha, because in the end everything was fine. And now I just can't imagine the reaction to that would be, even in retrospect, anything near laughable, or like chuckleable.
And I worry now in the United States that there will be people seeking retribution.
Absolutely.
That there will be a response to this.
Well,
someone else will be assassinated.
This is what I mean by being
attempts will be made.
Yeah, it being unpredictable because there are so many people who fire each other up, and it's uncontrollable, and people fall into all kinds of bad crowds and reinforce the kind of the worst instincts.
And especially, people that have been radicalized, or
Absolutely,
people that are susceptible to buying into an ideology or finding a home in a community where they've previously felt ostracized or uninvited, or that their views were not taken seriously, not respected. They feel they've been left behind. They feel they're being replaced. Which is a big word, I think, relating to all of this. Listen, Nick, we've asked you for a half an hour, and you've told us that you have a half an hour max because you're on your way right from our studio in downtown Edmonton to an announcement where the Prime Minister of Canada is going to announce some of these major projects. These are, of course, this is a list that a lot of Canadians are going to be paying close attention to, because this was a big election promise from Carney, that he could get the economy going again, that he could deal with the United States, that there will be shovels in the ground. For our Alberta audience, there's one glaring omission based on the list that you've been made privy to.
That's right. Yeah. And can I just say first that only Mark Carney and everything he embodies as a private sector and a bureaucrat and a banker kind of guy could make major projects probably spike on Google Trends, like major projects. It's just funny, the sort of the pragmatic, no nonsense names for these things, and I just, that strikes me as like him and Tim Hodgson, his energy minister, announcing a major projects office, and that's the kind of thing that makes headlines.
Well,
because it's not really how it works in politics. Usually, it has something as a flashy name, and this is just the MPO.
Well, that's why they called the Canadian Energy Centre the War Room,
right?
Because no one was paying attention when it was called the Canadian Energy Centre. They figured it would just be another industry organization, an industry lobby, when in fact it was a government-funded institution. Carney is going to announce these major projects, and you know that Alberta's premier is among those that are going to be hoping to see a big, shiny new pipeline, and that's not on the list.
That's right. So based on the list that we've seen, which the government, no sources have confirmed, but it was a draft press release that I received that sure seems legitimate. I stand to be corrected. The CBC has reported the same list, so that makes me feel like we're on the right track. But there are no pipelines. And Danielle Smith, now, in fairness, she did soften expectations on having a pipeline on this first tranche. She said it's not the end of the world if there's no pipeline there. There's not a surprise that there's no private sector proponent right now with a project ready to go as of the announcement today. But there are other projects. Now, there's no showstopper, I wouldn't say. I don't think there's a project down here that's going to wake people up and say, oh, that's bold, that's exciting. These are mines. It's a nuclear project. There's an expansion of an LNG facility in British Columbia on the west coast. These are projects that were already in the pipeline, not a pipeline, but in the pipeline. The kinds of things that are probably acceleratable, right? They can say to Don Farrell in the Major Projects Office, we're submitting these for your consideration, which is the framing they used in this draft press release. And they're the kinds of things she can probably say yes to. Is I think the goal. They're not. I don't think this announcement today is trying to blow the roof off the joint. It's trying to demonstrate pragmatic progress on some of the stuff that they've promised for months. And this is the thing: 1,000 countdowns will end today with at least the announcement of this first tranche of potential projects. A lot of work left to go. This will by no means soften conservative criticism in Ottawa of Mark Carney and getting things built and getting things done. I think they will likely see this as just another announcement. No shovels in the ground yet. Another set of bureaucracy is about to evaluate these projects. Who knows how long it's going to take? They say 2 years, but can we trust that? Is it going to be 5? Is this just another round of Trudeau with a different face? I'm sure we'll hear versions of that from various conservatives. And it's a fair political argument to make. I'm sure a lot of your listeners and viewers will see wisdom in that, because they're also watching the clock. And they're saying, this government has promised all summer that they're going to get stuff done. Well, this is just a list of things that they think they can accelerate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We talked to the Prime Minister, again, that was the 10th of September, if people want to check our archives for that interview, about the timelines. In particular, I basically said, a lot of Canadians are starting to wonder if you're ever going to get a deal done with the United States.
That's right.
Another one. And he kind of sits up and he goes, listen, he, of course, tied it into Connor McDavid and Connor McDavid's extension with the Oilers. But he basically says, my promise to Canadians, we're going to get a good deal. He says, I'm not going to sign a substandard deal. He didn't appear to be too ruffled by the implication that Canadians are getting restless. Nick Taylor-Vaisey, Ottawa Bureau Chief of Politico, is our feature guest today, presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. You can check out Politico.com for more on what Nick's team does. If you click on Canada, and then you'll find Canada Playbook. And this is, I think, a really neat thing that that you do, updated basically daily or even through the day at Politico.com, where people can keep an eye, you, Mickey Jurek, and Mike Blanchfield, basically driving the day. You're like, here are the news stories, here are the headlines, and here's what Mark Carney's going to be getting up to in Edmonton. There has been, I think, probably an important point registered to the public, which is that the new pipeline, or a new pipeline, will not move forward unless there is private investment, unless there's interest from industry. And the Prime Minister has said on the record to this point, there has been no interest from private industry. Now, if you were to jump on that as someone who would like to see no new pipelines in Canada, you would point out the obvious, that the conservative perspective would be that if there was appetite and justification for a new major infrastructure project like a pipeline, it should be covered by private interests with an opportunity, obviously, or a promise for that risk reward for a profitable venture. But of course, government should not pay for a new pipeline. You would think that would be the conservative perspective. You were just up, like literally just up, in Fort McMurray, the heart of Canada's oil sands. I'm sure that came up with the industry leaders and the everyday people that you were talking to.
Yeah. I mean, the conversation about the oil sands in Fort McMurray, this is going to be obvious to so many people in this province, and people who are familiar with the industry and with that place in particular. I mean, it is the way of life. For an Easterner like me, it's a wake-up call, how people talk about the oil sands and energy in general. The conservative argument up there, and I interviewed Layla Goodridge, the MP in Fort Mac, is that, of course, there's no private interest right now in any kind of ready-to-go, off-the-shelf pipeline project, because 10 years of Liberal policy has made it impossible. That's what Layla said. And I said, do you buy the argument that not only are energy companies knocking on Carney's door and on Tim Hodgson's door, but in fact, the door's already open and Carney's waving them in, and they're interested openly in talking about pipelines. She said, well, if you told me a couple of years ago there'd be Liberals who want to build a pipeline, I'd have laughed. But also, whatever they're talking about with Bill C-5, this nation-building bill, they still have a tanker ban on the West Coast. They still have what they call the No More Pipelines bill, not repealed. They still have an emissions cap. They still have this long list that Danielle Smith is also not a fan of on the books. And so there is an inherent conflict there that the conservative perspective, in this case championed by Layla Goodridge from her hometown of Fort Mac, just doesn't believe. And this is going to be the tension, a central tension, when MPs return, and senators, can't forget senators, next week in Ottawa when Parliament is back. It will be, here's the new list. And credit to the Prime Minister and his Energy Minister and the other cabinet ministers who are part of this work. It takes a long time to move government and to move bureaucracy. And so when they talk about moving faster than anyone's ever moved, or since the Second World War, we don't see most of it because it's mostly behind closed doors. They don't have public meetings where they hash this stuff out. They do it with bureaucrats behind closed doors, companies behind closed doors. So we don't know exactly how much they're working and how much progress they're making tangibly until we see these baby steps or these progress markers. So how much are Canadians, and I'm sure pollsters are asking about this, how much are they going to believe that this is real progress today, the announcements of these mines and the LNG project, and there's a Port of Montreal expansion? How much do they believe that's going to lead to real economic growth, increased economic independence in Canada, or how much is it going to be what the Conservatives will probably argue, which is, well, just more talk?
I want to ask you this in closing, and I'll thank you for your time. You're going straight to this thing, and if you're late, you're not going to get past RCMP security, which I have to imagine, I'm not being a wisecracker here, is going to be tighter today than it already would have been, which is considerable. Right. But you've also written about the climate battle, and I wanted to talk to you about the political cost that Mark Carney is paying, or at least the risk that he's taking, I think, and I won't call them concessions, but in opening this major projects office in Calgary, and in appointing Don Farrell, who's had a storied and illustrious career and a very well-recognized and respected Canadian CEO. So says Caroline Briette, who, by the way, we welcomed to the show on the 9th of September, the executive director of Climate Action Network Canada. She was talking about the EV ban. She was talking about, but basically she was talking about Canada's commitment to the Paris Agreement and the like. And climate lobby groups or climate action groups like hers, she represents about 200 of them, are actually quite concerned right now and actually quite critical of the Prime Minister, suggesting that he's walking away from, or at least forgetting about, a lot of Canada's climate goals in order to find favor with the United States, in order to get industries going. How can you see this playing out long term? It's a bit of an ironic circumstance, isn't it? It's quite different under Prime Minister Trudeau.
Yeah, so we talked about the tension across the aisle on these issues. But within the Liberal caucus, I would not describe there being a rift at all. But there are a lot of Liberal MPs, many of whom were elected in the Trudeau era, who still prioritize climate. And they still would probably agree with Carolyn about the imperative here and how, yes, cost of living and the price of groceries and the price of a house, that is personally existential in many ways. Families, their livelihoods and their quality of life depends on being able to buy things to eat and have a roof over their head. Mm-hmm. But then they would also say climate change is a globally existential problem. So if we don't have a planet to live on, how can we have a house to buy? That, I think, will be an interesting internal tension to measure as time goes on. Because if you talk to a lot of Liberal MPs here this week, they'll say something to the tune of, they'll kind of flip that argument about the climate crisis being more important than the personal thing. They'll say, well, people do care about climate change, but guess what? When you are facing that personal crisis and you have kids and you want them to grow up and have some kind of comfort, well, then the climate change becomes naturally secondary, even though it may be in the long term the thing that gets us all. It's an interesting conversation.
Well, it's like that classic sort of triage scenario,
yeah.
Right? Like you may have you're in a car accident, you have a broken ankle, but you're like bleeding out. The bleeding out is the emergency, not to suggest the broken ankle, or maybe they discover something that would ultimately take you stage 4 cancer, let's say.
Sure.
My metaphor is quickly getting complicated.
Yeah.
But the idea is you've got to hit the most immediate issue first. In a lot of Canadian households, it's not to suggest that they deny that climate change is happening, or that they deny that it's an issue, that there's a human element to it, and that we need to do something about it. But if they can't pay for their groceries tomorrow, then that's the bigger issue for that household in that moment.
Yeah, you can't be worrying about increasingly disastrous environmental disasters if you can't eat and you can't pay rent. It's just not how it works.
Nick, I wish we had an hour. We don't, because you're kind of a big deal, and you got to go cover this story on behalf of Politico. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us right here in studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton.
So much fun.
Look at this. We got an Ottawa guy in here 2 days in a row. That works out well for us.
The other one wants to be an Edmonton guy.
The other one, deep ties to Edmonton, and I know you're always happy to be here as well. Thanks for bringing us up to speed on your Fort McMurray visit in particular. People can read more about it by visiting Politico.com. You just click on Canada. Make sure you subscribe to that Canada playbook as well. Nick Taylor-Vaisey, the Ottawa bureau chief for Politico, has been our guest in our feature interview today, presented by our friends at Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Real Talkers, I want to get to your comments on Charlie Kirk. I want to get to a recap of our interview with Mark Carney, but first, I want to remind you that our friends at Friesen Brothers are celebrating 70 years right now. 70 years in the province of Alberta, still family-owned and operated. It's an incredible success story. And this year, through the year 2025, you can keep your eye on many, many different celebratory moments as this team at Friesen Brothers marks this monumental anniversary. You can check out the events on their main page, including coming up September 13th and 14th, that Filipino feast. It's going to be absolutely fabulous. I also want to direct your attention to their Family Essentials flyer, which you can find on their website, or you can pick it up in store. Quality food for low prices every single day. It includes recipes from time to time as well, which our family really loves. Friesen Brothers is Alberta grown and Alberta owned. Wonderful to check in with our friends at Solar by Kubi yesterday. They're still absolutely pedal to the metal right now on getting those installations done before the weather changes. Kubi is Western Canada's busiest solar installer. And right now, it's never been easier. If your family is thinking of going solar, if your family's thinking of going green, you can visit kubi.ca. That's kuby.ca to get a free quote. Their team takes you through every step of the process, including any paperwork if you want to apply, for example, to that Canada Greener Homes loan. You can basically you don't have to come up with all the cash up front. You get 10 years to pay off your solar system, and by that time, A lot of folks with solar panels on their roof will tell you your system's already paid for itself. You can book that free solar quote today, again, at kubi.ca. California Closets, proudly Canadian-owned and operating, making the most of your space with their custom organizational systems. California Closets' team of designers, the best in the business. They can make the most of any space, and they can work with any budget. I know some of you are probably thinking, I don't know if I can afford California Closets. Go to their website, californiaclosets.ca. That's where you can learn more about the different design levels, solutions for any space and budget, the price driven by the size of your space, the complexity of your design, and the materials you choose. All of it, a lifetime guarantee from our friends at California Closets. And North Road Investment Council welcoming back, many of their clients, I'm sure, that went off the grid a little bit, right? Out at the cabin, the cottage, through those summer months, reflecting on their career goals, and of course, thinking about their family's retirement. North Road Investment Council is a steady hand and a studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. Their Edmonton-based team, led by Marshall and Carrie, partners with discerning families, foundations, and associations on life's winding path with expert navigation through the complexities of wealth accumulation and investment advisory services for clients both in and outside of Alberta. A strategic approach to wealth management that will align with your vision. And they've got you covered on digital risk advisory services as well. That's just one of the things that sets them apart. You can find North Road Investment Council online today by visiting northroadic.com. Our thanks to Nick Taylor-Vaisey for joining us. John Hicks, you know that a lot of times when we'll book a guest that's going to join us in studio, we figure it's pretty straightforward. We're going to get the Ottawa bureau chief from Politico in to recap the Carney interview, play some clips, get his take on what the Prime Minister had to say, and then he's got this scoop on the list of these projects that the Prime Minister's getting set to announce, big infrastructure projects across the country. And then all of a sudden, the entire news cycle is turned upside down. With a political assassination in the state of Utah. And, you and I were texting, including with a couple of friends yesterday, and just kind of the shock that everybody was under. Charlie Kirk was certainly, I guess, a polarizing figure, that's safe to say, but a very, very popular individual. At just 31 years of age, a major player in the Republican movement in the United States, in the conservative movement globally. How are you wrapping your mind around what happened yesterday?
Yesterday afternoon, as we're, kind of doing all our post-Carney stuff, I got the same text messages you did from a friend and, started to watch some of the footage. And let me first say, I thought you made a great point that nobody's really talking about. I did see our good friend Jesse Liscombe also post about this on social media yesterday. Before we start talking about our opinions on this, and we don't really know who did any of this, but the fact that we weren't given permission to see this, we're kind of just shown violence and death. There's no, I went on Twitter and I wanted to see where the shooter was positioned, or some of the crowd running in fear, or see where he was talking or what he was talking about when it happened. And I immediately saw a death video. I saw a snuff video, which, 20 years ago, you had to go to the depths of the internet, and through a bunch of links to find videos that are like this. And now today, you open up your phone on any one of the social media apps that we have on our phone, and you're just shown death. And nobody asks you if you want to see it. Yeah. And kids are seeing it without permission. Yeah. And I just feel like that's something I don't know how we do it, but that needs to be gatekept a little more, because I was shocked and angered and horrified when I saw this. And on the other hand, though, I think, some people needed to see it, because I think a lot of people have a lot of anger for someone like Charlie Kirk, who does, let's be honest, the reason people's sorrow and empathy tanks are kind of low on this, for some people who feel a certain way about Charlie Kirk, is because he kind of had that for other people. He didn't have a lot of empathy for people. Well,
right? And I want to get to a lot of the comments here in our live chat, and just to be real with you, the audience, part of me hesitates, because a lot of you are holding nothing back in the chat, and that's fine. You have that right to express yourself. We always ask that you keep it civil, but people are pointing out right now, they're saying just last week, Charlie Kirk on his podcast was laughing about children being dragged away from their parents, or parents being dragged away from their children by ICE. Someone else is pointing out that, Charlie Kirk, when Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked, is saying, if somebody wants to do everybody a favor, someone should go and bail this guy out, right? The alleged attacker. So people are saying, all of a sudden someone can whip everybody up and get, MAGA Nation going. And then as soon as they're killed, then all we're permitted to exude is empathy. So, I mean, it's a divisive situation, even in death. Lorne is bang on and just says the chance of being shot or injured at a rally as a participant is shocking. Christine in our live chat says the hate and division has to stop. It comes equally from the left and the right. Says we have to come together. We have to care for each other.
Sure.
Blah Sheep says when we stop talking, he's quoting Charlie Kirk here, when we stop talking, bad stuff happens. We have to go back to where we could have reasonable discussion. Violence is not an option.
True.
Quoting him there. So I just think, like, to me, what really makes me, I mean, there's a million things that make me nervous about this. And I'm not surprised to see, Democrat lawmakers, presidents. The very first tweet I saw about, it's not a race. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying who posted first. That's not what this is about. But like the very first post I saw about this was from Gavin Newsom, Democratic governor of California, and probably, is it safe to say, Donald Trump, one of Donald Trump's certainly biggest political rivals. A lot of people figure that Gavin Newsom may have his eyes on the Oval Office, but Gavin Newsom tweeting the attack on Charlie Kirk is disgusting, vile, and reprehensible. In the United States of America, we must reject political violence in every form. Another, Barack Obama. I don't think he has warm feelings for Donald Trump or anybody who helped Donald Trump get into the Oval Office, let alone for a second time. But says former President Obama, we don't yet know what motivated the person who shot Charlie Kirk, which is true. He says, but this kind of despicable violence has no place in our democracy. Goes on to talk about the prayers that they'll have for his family. So, you have people from across the aisle. You have people from across the political spectrum. And I think people making fair points. Nobody wants to hear a both sides type scenario when the body is still warm. But the fact of the matter is, and I just put a short list out there, but in Utah and Minnesota, the attempt on Trump's life, or attempts, if you include the other one on the golf course where the Secret Service took down an alleged would-be shooter in the bushes at that golf course, the attempt on the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, it's happening.
Oh, yeah.
It is nerve-wracking. It's terrifying. And now you have to wonder, like, if you're the average American citizen right now wondering if there will be retribution or where will it happen, university campuses, including in Canada, like I think of, Polytechnique, Montreal, like École Polytechnique, like, we have had tragedies on campuses and they seem to be, and I'm not a sociologist, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert, but people, I think, like at their core, don't we have an expectation that university campuses should be a place where people can explore and seek to better understand how they feel about something or how they understand politics, or how politics
I
relates
think
to
they
them?
should be dangerous places. Not dangerous in the terms of shooting, but you should hear all those dangerous ideas that you never want to hear again in your life while you're formulating your perception of the world. You should hear them when you're young, and so you can be able to form your own opinions and see, do I agree with that or not? Do I like that or not? Is that way out there or not? That stuff 100% should be happening on university and colleges campuses across North America, if not the world. What I don't like is how, this whole call to, like, we have to manufacture this sorrow and compassion for someone that we didn't know, first of all. And second of all, when people are saying, well, he spurred discussion and he encouraged people to have a conversation. Well, yes, he did. But let's be honest. He also monetized going to campuses and owning libs and getting clips and putting them on the internet. That was his shtick, right?
Totally.
That was his thing. Let's not be. And I'm not trying to speak ill of the dead. And that's another thing that people are saying. Don't speak ill of the dead. Well, let's be honest about what happened here. There are people on both sides here in Canada and the States that are inflaming these, I don't want to say wars, but these debates and these controversies between the left and the right. Mm-hmm. And Charlie was part of that. Let's not be, and I'm not blaming him. I'm not saying this is karma.
Not.
I'm not saying any of those
You're
words.
stating facts.
What I'm saying is the reason people are so upset is because people like Charlie, let's say on the right, people like Charlie, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly go out there and say things that they know get a reaction out of people. They monetize that reaction. They make a living off it. And then they figure out how to do it more and more every day and get everyone angry all the time. And on the left, I don't know what the names are. You want to say like the ladies of The View, Jon Stewart, whoever, Rachel Maddow, whoever. They do the same thing as well. And both sides are doing it. And now we're seeing the consequences. And it's real life. And people are getting hurt. People are getting killed, Ryan. And I'll say again, we don't know what happened here. Like, I'll even say this morning, we're now seeing that he was probably wearing a small breastplate, like a bulletproof vest.
Oh, really?
It actually, the experts are showing close-ups now that it actually deflected. It was a heart shot that went up into his neck. So he obviously knew that he was under scrutiny, that there was a chance that he could be shot.
Threats. I wonder if there had been threats.
100%, I guess there were. And we don't know who did this. We don't know if it was a professional. We don't know if it was someone who was mentally whatever. We know it was a long-distance shot. And, again, on the internet, you could hear every side of the argument is like, well, it had to be a professional. Someone else is like, well, if you had a good gun and, an amateur could do it. So, we don't know anything yet. But what I do know is that we need to stop inflaming each other on each side. And when we do it, the worst part that people are doing, Ryan, is painting people as evil. And I'm not just talking about politicians. But the way we try to make people believe that, Justin Trudeau, for example, thinks this and that and that. Or here in this province, Danielle Smith is evil because she wants to, put forth this policy or whatever. And it carries over all the time where we're getting away from just debating and arguing issues to being like, this person is inherently evil and is going to destroy society. And you turn them into these villains who, look what happened. Yeah. We start killing people.
And I know you and I, we chat ahead of time, and I always sort of want to have this focus. It's like the locker room, meeting before a big game where you say, like, we want to make sure we stay focused in these conversations. We know that there's, a big audience that will participate in this conversation. We want to be responsible. So we don't want to speculate on the motivation of the killer. We don't know who the killer was. We know these
absolutely
details.
Nothing.
But at the same time, we do know a great deal about the influence that Charlie Kirk had. We do know a great deal about those who followed him, who found a home in his podcast, who found their views well represented and articulated by him. We know, generally speaking, what rubbed people the wrong way about him, how his opponents felt about him, and some of those sort of key or main talking points, right? His view of women in the home, or the anti-vax stuff, the election truthers, supporting Trump. But I will say this, you may not like his style. You and I were reflecting on this yesterday, how he would he sort of, and he really made a name for himself. He established his organization when he was 16 years old. He was the youngest person in history. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He is the youngest person in history to ever speak at a Republican National Convention. Mm-hmm. 31 years of age.
We're talking about a guy who influenced the president to pick his VP.
Major influence on the president of the United States. Major influence on the youth of America, like it or not. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that Kirk did when he was making a name for himself early and then all the way through, this scene at Utah Valley University, it will go down in history. This is a moment in American history, a significant moment in American history. And at this point, we're talking to you, in less than 24 hours after this incident has happened, this murder, this assassination, let's call it what it is. But at first glance, there's nothing different about that scenario than any other scenario that Kirk had found himself in. He would set up at universities. He would sit there with a microphone. They'd have a camera. He'd sit at a table and he would invite people cold. He would invite people with, there's no prep, there's no nothing. He'd sit down and debate them. And oftentimes, he was very effective at the art of debate. And by that, I guess what I'm saying is he was very well schooled on his talking points. He was very good at sound bites, and he was very good at owning people. And these videos would be posted where he would own the libs, and he would own the left wingers and make great hay on it, and did good business on it. And a lot of people loved it. People these days, and maybe it's always been this way, we just didn't realize because social media didn't have such a pervasive and massive effect on all of us and on our psyche and on how we communicate with each other. But owning other people was almost his signature to a certain degree. And so you can understand, I am not justifying this violence at all. All I'm trying to say is you can understand why he was so polarizing, why he was so divisive.
Yeah.
But to see somebody like this assassinated, it's got to put a chill through the entire, not just American society.
Oh, it's Ryan. I thought of us. Like we literally, and
I thought the same thing.
I'll make this quick. But yesterday we had RCMP in here. We had private security detail for the Prime Minister of this country. We had drug and bomb sniffing dogs through here for a 20-minute conversation with a guy who walked in and out of our studio. You know, he's here 30 minutes, whatever. I mean, and I know that's the leader of our country, but we're a small little place here. And this is the tone. This is the feeling. This is the fear in North America right now, is that, especially if you're in politics, but I also think of ourselves. I mean, there was a time when we didn't have these debriefs, when you didn't ask me my opinion. I was just a guy who pressed buttons and people came on. And then we started having these moments where you started asking me my opinion.
Well, because we were doing this after the show anyway, we figured we might as well do it on camera.
But I remember when you started, I said, hey, man, I'm not a Politico. I'm not a nerd like you. I'm not centered. I'm not dialed in to politics. And you said to me, that's exactly your opinion. You're the everyday guy.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think, and then we can go back and forth. And when I started doing it, my partner at home said, you know, just be careful because opinions cause people to get angry. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you know, your safety and mine as well. And it really got to me. I was like, wow, things I say could affect her when she goes out in the world. And so I'll go back to yesterday when this happened, and I'm cutting clips of the Prime Minister who was just in here, and we had a crazy people, security and everyone in here. And I just thought when this happened to Charlie, and I'm not trying to equate us to, you know, political, you know, figureheads, but we could walk out of this studio and something be met with violence for something we say on this show. And that's scary, and it should never happen. It should never happen. So I just want to make that clear. All the things we're saying here today is that it's scary for everyone. This makes everyone afraid, and we should all condemn it. That's for sure.
100%. And this is like, you know, you make the comment about the Prime Minister, and I mean, the thing, too, is like you look at this and it's being described, and it's rightfully being described. I agree with this 100%. This killing is being described as a political assassination. He was not an elected leader.
It's a private citizen, right?
He's a private citizen. He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
He's an activist. He's a political commentator. He's not your average political commentator. He was a very like him or not, there's many people in our chat right now that are talking about how he weaponized, like, you know, I want to be fair here and read comments. There's big Charlie Kirk supporters in our chat, and there's people that vociferously oppose him. Gizmo says he hated trans people. The last question, as I said earlier, Gizmo, the last question was about trans people, where he said most mass shooters were trans people while he was working to remove their rights as an American citizen. But you know, you look at a situation like this, and you wonder now, like, not to suggest that those that politicians sort of always have, you know, they got to watch their backs, or we got to always look for politicians. But this was a political assassination targeting a commentator, targeting an organizer, and now you wonder. And I hate to say, you almost don't even want to put this out there, but like, I don't think anyone's taking their ideas from our show. I think that everyone's thinking this, and we might as well talk it out. Now you wonder, what is like the world's biggest Charlie Kirk supporter going to do to even the score? And I can't even imagine. It would be interesting, wouldn't it, to have eyes inside, you know, the FBI and understand how they're investigating this, and understand how this investigation plays out, and how they're now probably locking down certain things. How I guarantee some politicians are probably canceling some appearances. This is what happens here. But just among members of the general public, like, this could have, like, is there a liberal or progressive podcaster in the United States that's now going to have to watch their back at their next event?
Yeah.
Is there a liberal or progressive podcaster, one of the more prominent ones in the United States or even in Canada or anywhere else, that is in their right mind that would even make a public appearance today?
I was just thinking that now, like, how do we even, you know, presidential candidates, politicians of any kind, how do they go out and speak today, or will for the next few months or years? Like, are we all going to be behind bulletproof glass? It's absolutely insane. But that's the one thing that scared me as well. I was like, this guy, he was connected to politics. Maybe he would have been a politician eventually, but this guy is a private citizen. He put out a schedule saying, here are the 14, college campuses, university campuses I'm going to. This is my tour. This is where I'm going to be. Come talk to me. I'm going to be sitting in a chair in this exact spot on these dates. And it's scary that someone went there with a rifle. And the other thing that's scary is trying to figure out what this person wants. Are they just some crazy person? Are they someone who has a very, has a mantra? They know what their purpose is for this? Are they a mix of both? Maybe they know that they hate him and they want to kill him, but they also want the left. They want to start a race war. They want to start a left and right war, civil war in the States. And that's exactly what this, Ryan, the match is kind of lit here. We need to put it out. And you see it online right now. You see, I'm not going to say it's everyone, but there are people on the left making fun of this and not necessarily celebrating.
No, there are people.
There
celebrating,
are people celebrating. Let's just say
there are people that are
not people we know have common
this.
sense, but like people who are idiots.
Absolutely.
And then there are people on the right too, as well, saying, "Let's go, arm yourself. This is it. This is the start." And that. It scares the hell out of me.
I don't mean to always bring it up, but I'll remind people that you spent many of your formative years in the state of Florida, and I think it's obvious. When we talk about American issues, when we talk about American politics, I know that it resonates with you more deeply than the average Canadian. Even though you live here proudly, you're a proud Canadian. But I know
I plan to go there in the new year,
but
and
the state of Florida too is a Republican stronghold right now, and obviously with a very prominent governor, and obviously Mar-a-Lago. I don't have to explain this to people, but I just think I know that it's obvious that it impacts you.
It's a stronghold.
To a great degree.
Russell Brand moved there. It's becoming like an Austin, Texas kind of MAGA movement place to live.
Yeah, Garth's in our chat, and he goes, "The tolerant left, huh?" And then I see a comment right after. Somebody responds, and basically PNC Bio says, "Why does everyone say the left is tolerant?" Says this seems to be something the right wants to throw at the left, and I see no evidence for it beyond tolerating innocuous differences. I don't know. I don't think that this is. Let me contradict myself. Let me correct myself. Let me debate with myself. This either has nothing to do with the left and the right, or it has everything to do with the left and the right. But the fact of the matter is that, and it's
not going to be in the middle.
You hear me. You probably notice on this show, I really, really dislike, by the way, we're hoping to have a very prominent right-winger on the show tomorrow morning on the 12th of September, and we'll get her take on all of this. She's spoken very publicly about this. I won't name her till we confirm her. That's our policy. But you think I'm going to refer to people as, this right-winger or this left-winger? It's counterproductive. So I try to use words you'll hear me use these words all the time. I lament to you that I'm now, setting up scenarios where I say the progressives think this and the conservatives think that. I always felt like there was this beautiful marriage of progressive conservative, and it feels like and people are always like, Jesperson, plant your flag, declare your allegiance, tell us how you vote. If there was a progressive conservative option provincially or federally, I would tell you about it. I'd wear a fucking lapel pin if there was such a thing, but there's not. And I lament the fact every day that people believe it to be impossible right now to hold to some small c conservative values and some small p progressive values and find a sweet spot where your politics can include the entrepreneurial spirit and the spirit of empathy. But there doesn't seem to be that anymore. And so now you're looking at this, and in a matter of, Garth saying, the tolerant left, or PNC Bio saying that the left never is supposed to be tolerant, I don't think it's this. I think it's you get to a point in any society, and I'm sure it's happened through millennia, where people become so radicalized in their beliefs, or people just lose sight of sort of what draws us together, or what community means, or the art of conversation. And now you're gonna, people will mock me for sort of getting Pollyanna rose-colored glasses about this kind of thing, but that's what happened here. Let's not rule out mental illness. Let's not rule out the fact, you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
Of course. We don't know yet, but there have been so-called left-wing killers. There have been left-wing targets. There have been right-wing assassins. There have been right-wing targets. This is a bigger picture about our political climate, about the temperature right now, and about our inability, it seems, as a society to hear one another out, to seek to understand, and to be able to live alongside people whose beliefs we may loathe.
I feel like we're being because what you're saying, Ryan, I think the majority of people are like that. They're common sense people who either lean a little left or right. And these fringe people who we see online and our perception of reality gets warped, that's what's causing this. And again, I'll go back to people painting politicians, but especially private citizens like Charlie Kirk as, yeah, I don't agree with a single thing Charlie said. Do I think he's some evil guy who wants to hurt people? No. But online, people on the left painted him that way. And on the right, they do the same thing to liberals and call them libtards and names and, put devil horns on them and put out memes. And they don't become people anymore. They become just like characters with targets on their back. And, the majority of people are not, we're in the middle and we're leaning one way or the other a little. And then we've got these fringe on the outside and they're painting our perception, Ryan. When we go online, those crazy people, they're the ones getting hits. They're the reels we see first. They're the tweets we see first. And someone out there who's not as mentally stable as us sees all that all day long and they lose touch with the fabric of reality. And then they go out and do stuff like this, dude. And that's why the left and right, all sides, all independents, everyone, we need to stop inflaming this. We need to start remembering, like, people are people everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just opinions, man. I mean, Charlie wasn't a politician. He didn't enact any policy. He went around trying to own libs and make YouTube videos, and he made a lot of money doing it. But, I mean, and he may have said some things that genuinely hurt people, but that doesn't mean he deserved to get shot.
Well, and I know and I guarantee people will clap back on a comment like that and say, well, he was like weaponizing people, or he was fanning the flames of hatred towards trans Americans, or toward immigrants, or undocumented workers, or what have you. Certainly, and there's room for debate there. But like, can we all agree that we cannot and must not and will not tolerate a society where people are shot and killed?
Words.
For words. That courtesy of our friends at California Closets, the Real Talk live stream is available 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern, weekdays on 7 different platforms. That's, YouTube, Mixler, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and X. And watching us on Facebook this morning live, Michael chimes in. He says, political violence is not a solution. It says, but you understand the catharsis some people have watching someone who advocated violence and death against the marginalized. Him going out the way he lived on a bad faith argument is not the way anyone would or should want to go out. People continue to honor him with bad faith arguments. Michael said this is not on all sides. The argument he went out was a mischaracterizing of scale. There's not an equality to both sides, because if there was, then where's the response to the assassination of Melissa Hortman? You can Google that, by the way. There's been news coverage right now on that story. It says it's sad that a family has lost a member, but even though I doubt today he would advocate to be the sacrifice, says Michael, he did say that gun violence was unfortunately necessary to protect Second Amendment rights. That was something I shared earlier when we were talking to Nick Taylor-Vaisey. Mark Bohr is watching us live on Facebook. I happen to know, I've met Mark personally. Mark lives in Salt Lake City, Utah. And he's a regular tuner to Real Talk. So Mark says one other thing to note is that the Utah legislature recently allowed for open carry of firearms on college campuses. Says so it's difficult to tell if somebody has ill intent or is just exercising their right to open carry. We call him Mark B in SLC. That's Mark in Salt Lake City. When he's in the chat, Mark says there's been way too much heated rhetoric from all sides in recent years. Recently, as we mentioned earlier, he says a Democratic legislator in Minnesota, and then now this. He says each side blames the other, and there needs to be much less vitriol from everyone in order for everything to change or anything to change, he says. Yeah,
like I said, like left, right, whatever, everyone's monetizing, the triggering of people. Like owning libs, owning Dems, owning Republicans, owning the right, owning conservative, and they're monetizing it, and and they look at the analytics and they're like, okay, when I said this, it pissed people off, but they all clicked more and they watched more. And then the next day they go do it 10x, and the next day they do it 25x. And I get it. You're making a living. We're in a social age. A lot of these people are not politicians. Me and Ryan, we watch them and we're like, these guys aren't even serious. They're entertainers. They're making money. They're going home to their family at night. They're not screaming at the dinner table about this stuff. It's for show. But people out there don't take it like that, Ryan. And people with mental health issues and people who are angry and fed up and have lost a job or a family member or, can't get the things they want in life and blame it on politicians and the people you're talking about. They take it dead serious. And so we got to chill out.
Ken K says, you nailed it, Johnny. He says, when you spend a lifetime rage farming, then eventually the crops come in. Kat McSee is watching us in our live chat, powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider. Kat says, I'm worried about all the left-leaning podcasters I listen to. And then part of me might be inclined to ignore this comment, but I think in the context of what we're talking about, in the spirit of this conversation, Redneck Philosopher, who kind of pops in and out of our chat, it's a very memorable handle. So I remember the name, Redneck Philosopher.
Of course, yeah.
Says, this show is getting more and more left and fucking predictable. Subscription gone. They've unsubscribed. Enough is enough. Like, literally, as we're sitting here talking about how this is not a left and right thing, reading comments from Kirk supporters and Kirk opponents, me telling you that if a party existed, I would publicly discuss my support for a progressive conservative party, and talking about finding ways to meet in the middle, and yet still it will land with people like Redneck Philosopher as a show going further and further left. We're not going to try to be the show of all things to all people, but I will tell you this, and I will promise you this. If you're one of our new subscribers, welcome. It's great to have you here. It's always a nice little bump after we have a prime minister on, second sitting prime minister, to visit the Real Talk studio, by the way, no big deal. But to our new subscribers, we'll let you know, you will hear, if you become a regular here on Real Talk, you will hear from people you can't stand. You will hear from people you absolutely agree with. You will hear from liberal and conservative, or NDP and conservative politicians in the same week, and sometimes on the same show, because that's how I'm wired personally, and because that's what I believe a platform like this needs to promise and deliver on.
Sure.
Right?
And it's fine to say you're not sad about this and also condemn it. It's fine to say Charlie was, yes, in many respects, a lot of people believed a horrible person, but also say he didn't deserve to die. And so, and it's also, we need to also just be wary of the fact that, like, there was a lot of stuff going on the week and months leading up to this that you alluded to, Ryan, the years before even. Donald Trump's attempted assassination, the Democrat in Minneapolis who was murdered, the governor you spoke about, attempted assassination, the school shootings that happened the day before this and the day of. So there's a lot to talk here. I know yesterday our kind of debrief of the prime minister turned into, a lot that we haven't even touched on here about gun violence and gun policy. So.
By the way, I just want to tell you this. I've not told you this. Who loved a bit of a name drop here.
Go ahead.
There were two people in particular that I've heard from that said the Carney interview was fine. Carney interview was pretty good, but the chat after was banging.
Oh, I got a message from this person personally yesterday.
Oh, who'd you get a message from?
Your friend Ian.
That's right.
Yeah.
The chief anchor, CBC National.
My first ever DM from the gentleman. So I said,
the chief correspondent, co-chief correspondent with Adrian Arsenault, who does an amazing job as well. Ian Hannamansing checked out the entire show yesterday. I don't know if he meant for us to say this publicly, but I don't give a shit, Ian. I'm saying it publicly. He reached out and he said the interview was okay. He didn't say that. He said the interview was good. He said, but the chat after was it. And why? Yeah. Because we were shooting from the hip. That's a bad metaphor to use today. I won't use that again. But because we were just being real, reading comments from the audience, and just talking about how politics impacts people's everyday lives, joking about ourselves, talking about the haircuts. This is the type of thing where I want people to be able to gather in discussion here, to not become polarized to the point of, in extreme and tragic circumstances, inflicting violence on people with whom they disagree.
Yeah.
That can't be what the show is about. That can't be that can't be how media is used. That can't be how political discussions are becoming torqued.
Yeah, and this show isn't really about us. Like, this show is about bringing on guests who know more than us. And I think the reason this debrief portion of the show is doing better now and people are liking it more, and when we don't do it, they're like, where was it? Is because, you're talking more than we are. We're reading your texts. We're reading your messages. We're reading your live chats because we want to know how people feel about this. And I know the majority of people out there have a good head on their shoulders. They see something like this online. They see a snuff video. They say, okay, we've gone too far. It's funny to make memes. It's funny to call people like, conspiracy theories. It's funny to call Trudeau the son of Castro. But like, when we get down to the real truth here, the majority of these memes and lies and conspiracy theories, it's all fluff, man. And it's becoming really, really dangerous. As if I'm saying something new, Ryan. You've known this for the past 10, 20 years. But now it's getting to the point where, like, yesterday we were like, okay, this is horrible. Someone's died. We don't know why. But the immediate thing we think is like, who's next? What's the reaction? What's the revenge? Who's going to throw the next stone? Who's going to shoot the next person?
Who's going to throw
Who's
the
going to
next
blow
stone?
up a business? Like, it's...
I know. We think about all these things, and I think we have to talk about it. I think it's cathartic. I think it's important. I think it's important we challenge ourselves. Boomshanker X in our live chat. If we believe that anybody that believes something different than we do is the enemy, we're screwed, says Boomshanker X. Now, some will say, well, what is this? Is this sort of lukewarm politics? Like we're going to sort of kumbaya campfire our way to political solutions and to economic and climate policy? No. But that word that Boomshanker X invokes, if we believe that they're the enemy, we're screwed. And I think that that's such an important comment. The person that I've known longer than almost anybody else in my life, my beloved cousin Andrew, is watching us right now from Calgary. Andrew pulls no punches. He says Charlie Kirk was a horrible person who said horrible things about a lot of minority groups. He was a repellent and disgusting asshole. And yet, he did not deserve to be killed like this. Andrew says if we oppose gun violence, we must oppose all gun violence. He says, I must admit that my immediate reaction was not so nuanced. Andrew's laying it out there. He's sharing publicly on my page. He says, I actively celebrated his death. And as I reflected through the day yesterday, I grew to understand that my reaction is part of the problem. Andrew says, are we ever in a sticky wicket? Wow.
Yeah.
You can send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. I feel like you and I in this audience could talk about this for an hour. I feel like we could talk about this all day.
I don't think we need to talk about it for an hour today because I think we'll be talking about it every day for a bit for a long time because even this morning, Ryan, I go online and I'm like, maybe people have cooled down. They haven't. It's gotten worse overnight. Some people are so mad and so angry and so upset and on both sides that they've stayed up all night. They haven't gotten any sleep. And now they're saying even crazier stuff online. And it makes me really scared. And I'm not kidding when I say it makes me scared for everybody who has an opinion, us walking out of this studio, any politician or MP or mayor or whoever who's in the city or anywhere right now walking in to do their job and just have conversations with people and pose opinions. I think everybody's kind of looking over their shoulder today.
Yeah. We've got several of you, and again, this live chat is a very dynamic chat, obviously, and so it's moving fast. So I want to give a lot of you credit by name for your comments, but I have to apologize. I know that several of you have referenced this Andrew Scheer, Rachel Gilmore dust-up. I got to be honest with you. I had to familiarize myself with it. I was not aware. So I'm seeing it right now for the very first time, but Ms. B will put it in her words. Says, don't be surprised, Real Talk, when Andrew Scheer, former Conservative leader, obviously, current MP, makes a rage bait post on Twitter of you saying that just like he did when Rachel Gilmore said the same thing. I wasn't familiar with it, so I guess here it is. I'm just looking to Reddit for it, Johnny. Correct me if I've missed anything. It's very possible I have. So Rachel Gilmore, you've heard her on the show before, media entrepreneur just like us, she says, I'm terrified to think of how far-right fans of Kirk, and I don't know if she tweeted before this or after this. This is the only one I'm seeing. She says, I'm terrified to think of how far-right fans of Kirk aching for more violence could very well turn this into an even more radicalizing moment. Will they now believe their fears have been proven right and feel they have a right to retaliate regardless of who actually was behind the initial shooting? So interesting post. She's not wrong. It's also controversial. I don't know if she shared sympathies before or made some comment about it. I don't know. But here we have Andrew Scheer quote tweeting it, like posting it to his followers saying, imagine how twisted she has to be that this is her first thought after a man was shot in the neck for expressing his views. So much hate in her. That from Andrew Scheer.
I mean, that's...
Let me just say, if I'm the former leader... and you can criticize Rachel Gilmore all you want.
Yeah.
I'm being real with you guys. This is a live streaming show. I'm just seeing this now. I don't have a ton of context. I don't know if she posted before or after. I don't know. But I will say this. You were the guy that ran to be Prime Minister of Canada. You're a conservative member of Parliament. When you speak, people listen. Like, not as many as before, but some people still listen. Why would you even pick this up? why would, in so many ways as Scheer believes it's distasteful for Gilmore to share that thought, how
Why
distasteful
are you wading
is it
in?
to fan the flames on this? What is Andrew Scheer hoping to accomplish with this?
Who in his team was like, yeah, hit send on this?
Well, probably
Like,
the same people that lost him the election when he ran against Justin Trudeau.
I would agree. And again, Rachel she's very outspoken. Of
course she is.
So like you could have alluded to her tweet without reposting it and not used her name and just said people in general shouldn't be doing that, etc. Like you have to be held to a higher standard if you're Andrew Scheer. I'm sorry. You can't just wade in to social media and say whatever you want like you're 18 years old. I saw it too and I was like, she does have a point. He's putting a big target on her back. He's saying this person doesn't give a shit. It was wild.
Well, so I'm scrolling through her. I'm finding this in real time. So I'm just reading this.
Calling someone twisted is pretty.
So she links to it, and then she's been very critical. She responds to Andrew Scheer. Let's pick this up. We have a second to pick that. You know what, Johnny? Can we? I need to take a break for a quick second. We're a business. We got to pay some bills. I want to focus on this, and also maybe someone could use like a 90-second break from all this heavy stuff, and then we'll get into this Rachel Gilmore story. You're basically going to watch or listen to us read this in real time. I'm going to read it in real time, and we'll respond to it. But let's just take a quick break. We're very proud Albertans. You know that, and of course, every single Thursday, in partnership with our friends at Play Alberta, we're going to be sharing a story of how Alberta wins. And Johnny, you know what I'm going to focus on. This is a pretty obvious one. Just this past Saturday, we had the Labor Day Classic rematch as the Edmonton Elks hosted the Calgary Stampeders at Commonwealth Stadium. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's been a bit of a tough go for the Edmonton Elks over the past number of seasons, as a matter of fact. That Battle of Alberta rivalry has not been where we've wanted it to be. The Elks and the Stamps haven't been battling it out to get to the Grey Cup like it used to be back in the day, and attendance, well, it's left something to be desired at Commonwealth Stadium, right? Well, not anymore. This thrilling scenario. Let me add in, by the way, that it was like 27 degrees Celsius. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, but Johnny, a reported attendance of 28,000 people showed up at Commonwealth Stadiums. They had those vuvuzelas blaring. They had the signs out. And, of course, everybody was cheering the Edmonton Elks as they laid it all on the line, looking to avenge their Labor Day Classic loss. That went down in Calgary. The Edmonton Elks, of course, suffering a 28-7 defeat. Well, this Saturday, it was the Elks' day as their defense shut down the Stamps, as their offense delivered, and as the Edmonton Elks emerged victorious with more than a little bit of swagger. As they improved their record, they stay in the playoff hunt. And Johnny, of course, they reignite the Battle of Alberta. This was just so amazing to see. Doesn't it feel good to see
amazing.
Like 30,000 people in the stands at Commonwealth Stadium?
I love it, man. The defense was on point. Like I hate to say this, and I don't want to blow anything because they've been doing great lately, but you get live reps in, like actual games, and you start gelling. This is what happens. You start working together.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, it's a CFL, baby.
So I'm watching this, and everybody knows, don't accuse me of sitting on the fence here, but you know I'm born and raised in Calgary. I proudly live and do business in Edmonton now, but I grew up watching Alan Pitts and Alondra Johnson and Doug Flutie and the Calgary Stampeders, and then, of course, moved to Edmonton during the era of Ricky Ray and all of, the stars here in Edmonton. Ed Hervey, of course, the beloved. We see Pinball Clemens and we hug each other. Pinball. No, I'm not talking about pinball. I couldn't even do that. He was in town over the summer. I was like, pinball. I'm like, let's talk about Battle of Alberta, how Toronto factored in and held everybody there. Gizmo Williams at a brunch the other day, hosted by our friends at Play Alberta, and I remember back to the heyday of the CFL. You know, remember Raheem Ismail going to the Toronto Argonauts, and of course you had those big signings there in Toronto. Who can forget Anthony Calvillo and the Montreal Alouettes? And it feels to me like there's some energy being infused back into the CFL.
Sure.
Could we see these national rivalries, those names that I remember from Toronto, Montreal, and Winnipeg? And I'm not showing any love to the BC Lions right now. I don't know why. Maybe that's hardwired into me. I don't know. No offense, BC. We know you've had some good football teams too as well. But when we were talking about how are we going to focus on how Alberta is winning right now, this one, the Battle of Alberta, was the one that I had to go to. And I just was so thrilled to have a chance to be there on Saturday. By the way, courtesy of our friends at Play Alberta. Let me tell you how Alberta wins with Play Alberta. Not only is it the most safe and secure way to bet casino, sports, and lottery online, and not only does all revenue go right back to the province, but Albertans are winning big every single day. 10, 50, even as much as $100,000 won daily on Play Alberta. They've even made millionaires. And best of all, for a limited time only, new players can receive a $1,000 casino bonus. You can download the app today wherever you get your apps. Check out all their great offers and get started today. Check out playalberta.ca for more. Should also mention that we're soliciting. You were just loving that music, Ben. I know it's like Johnny just plays this as he's editing the show after, just on the round on loop. But we do want to let people know in so many ways as you send us emails for like positive reflections by Kubi on Monday. Your Jasper memories. We've got an amazing one coming up from Brian, who shared with us that on Wednesdays. And of course, the Flamethrower on Fridays, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. We'd love to hear your Alberta wins submissions. A story of Alberta hitting it out of the park on the global stage, on the national stage, or even just provincially speaking. Like if an Alberta 11-year-old wins the national spelling bee, we are 100% going to cover it. So we're looking for your stories of how Alberta wins to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Okay, back to the story that we're following here, and this is one just keeping an eye on, and I'm just sort of trying to get up to speed on it quickly. But Rachel Gilmore, so she tweets about how concerned she is that radicalized right-wingers could essentially see, I'm paraphrasing her tweet, see Charlie Kirk as the martyr or the culmination of what he warned about and take further action. Andrew Scheer calls her twisted and points out there's so much hate in her. She responds to Andrew Scheer. How did I miss this, by the way? She responds to Andrew Scheer, says, I'm pointing out this could fan the flames of political violence, which is wrong. She says this is atrocious of you, an elected official, to twist my words in a moment like this. She says particularly when they've already been proven right. And she shares some tweets from people. Daniel Tyree just simply tweets the word war. Elon Musk tweets, the left is the party of murder. Graham Linehan tweets, they couldn't beat him in a debate, so they shot him. Christopher Rufo tweets, the last time the radical left orchestrated a wave of violence and terror, J. Edgar Hoover shut it all down within a few years. It's time within the confines of the law, give him credit at least for that, to infiltrate, disrupt, arrest, and incarcerate all of those who are responsible for this chaos. And then it goes on from there. Her Twitter account, her X account, she points out how she says, this moment is horrifying in several ways. Political violence is always wrong, but then she says his murder already being used among bad actors to fan the flames of further division, hatred, and violence, including here in Canada. And she shares a short, which you can watch. And then I will point to this, John. I'll scroll up. I mean, she's tweeting and tweeting. There's a lot of posts on there. She says, it blows my mind. I made the same point that so many others, including Hassan Piker, the YouTuber, made today. And now I'm getting threats that people will find where I live. She says even the haters themselves are saying, I made the same point as others, but vibes, I guess. She says, so thanks, Andrew Scheer. She shares a DM here from someone going by the name of Max Power, who simply says, we're going to find you. And then, of course, she goes on to share more. And then ultimately here, look at this. I don't think that this is a win for anybody, although I guess it may be for some. But look at this. About 12 hours before we're talking to you, she says, I'm going private. She sets her account to private. Rachel Gilmore does. She says, because shit is getting genuinely unsafe and out of control.
Yeah, and I'm kind of sick of seeing online, like everyone saying, the left is crazy, the right is crazy. Man, those DMs come from people on both sides of the spectrum, and they're from the far outer sides of the spectrum, and we need to condemn all that stuff, and we need to find these people and say, like, what's really wrong with you? Like, who hurt you? Why are you this angry about people you have never met before in your life? Because it's not just happening from Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives. It's happening on both sides from people we all know are not all there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And maybe they just need a little bit of help, right?
Yeah. White-Stream says it's not both sides that denotes a balance. There is no balance. Comment just disappeared. Shit. Says right-wing violence is the near totality of political violence in the U.S. That's just stats and data. Ambustion, thanks for your YouTube channel membership, by the way. And to those of you that joined us yesterday with a YouTube membership, we appreciate it. Ambustion says it's too late to calm down. I agree that's how it should be, but it's too far along. That country, talking about the United States, is going to be a police state soon. I guarantee it. And being calm is only going to be a disadvantage. I have to say that I agree.
How many countries are watching this right now and just cheering it on?
Well, look at Trump sending, like, look what's happening in Chicago. Like, we just talked about this earlier this week, and the National Guard already deployed in Washington, D.C., and the state of California is suing the White House, suing the Trump administration because of the National Guard response to what's happening with the ICE protests and how the wildfire scenario was handled or mishandled. I mean, it's like you have big Democratic states that are going up against the White House, and you wonder, like, where does this all go?
I guarantee Russia's loving this. China's loving this. Not loving it, but this is, the global leader of the world by country is eating itself from the inside out. It can only be good for other countries that have qualms with them. And so, I don't want to get all conspiracy theory, but that could feed into things that are happening as well, right? Like, that's why right now we know absolutely nothing about the shooter yesterday, and there are a million people who think they know exactly what happened online already.
Yeah. Garth says people want to live in an echo chamber. Gizmo says we should be able to speak to each other and be respectful. If somebody can't, I block them. Do what you need to do for your mental health, man. I encourage people to use that block button in healthy fashion, whatever you need to do.
That's what it's for.
JJ says every human being has the right to exist exactly as they are, no matter their race, sexuality, gender, beliefs. And we must respect that truth. And it will be in that respect that we're able to converse when we disagree. I really like that, JJ. 80s Fanify says, Johnny, the message that you're sharing is lost on a crowd looking to avenge Kirk's murder, which may be true as well. Les is asking us to please give a few minutes, recognizing 9/11. This is the 11th of September.
Kind of lost. J.D. Vance cancels his trip to New York.
Yeah.
He's in Utah. It's
the 24th anniversary of the day that changed the United States in the of one of the days, one of the few days on that list: Pearl Harbor, 9/11, the JFK assassination. Maybe in retrospect, Charlie Kirk's murder will be looked at. Who knows? Like, I'm not comparing Kirk to JFK. But like, this is a present day, like a sort of a messianic type figure. The Charlie Kirk rallied people. Look at this. I'm trying to reference Les's comment on 9/11, and I'm already back to this. I'll find my way there. But this is like someone has been shot and killed in cold blood in front of thousands of people. That was a route. This person, like, they talk about like that fulcrum, right? They talk about like that source of energy. Like, he was a source of, like, I didn't listen to Charlie Kirk's podcast. I knew who he was. I would watch some of his videos owning the libs. You want to be aware of who he is and what he's talking about. I was, when you use the word impressed, let me just be clear about what I'm saying, but it made an impact on me. The compelling personality that he had and his ability to garner support from millions of people. He mobilized an entire demographic in an election.
Yeah. Young males.
And arguably, States, or even inarguably, had a direct impact on the outcome of an election. This is a major figure in American politics.
He was on South Park for 2.5 episodes. They talked about this guy.
Right? But yes, Les, we remember 9/11, and I don't mean to say that in dismissive fashion. I certainly don't at all. The 24th anniversary of that day. Next year, 25. I don't know. I mean, all of us will remember where we were that day. All of us can talk about how it changed everything forever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just don't know how you I don't know how you talk really about anything else.
Well,
we had the freaking Prime Minister of Canada in our studio like 24 hours ago, and we haven't really recapped that at all today because this is what everybody is talking about, and this is a major moment. We're not you're dual, but I'm not an American citizen. I don't have to be my heart was heavy yesterday, and I'm not a fan of Charlie Kirk. I don't subscribe to his podcast. I couldn't tell you his wife's name. I didn't know that information about him. But my heart was heavy. My heart remains heavy because this cannot be where things go.
No, not at all. And I think 9/11. Yes, let's remember. But the reason 9/11 was so prevalent every year after, and why we talked about it, is because it was a threat to the country we're talking about, the United States, the country where I was born. But this is the new threat, Ryan, of the country of the United States eating itself from the inside. So yeah.
Lorraine shares with us, I put a post on social media outlining the rules for political posts on a community page during the upcoming municipal election, reminding people to please be respectful. And she says, now I'm being criticized for being against free speech, right? Like, that's just kind of the way that it goes. Peach says it is so sad and empathy is so important in this time, along with pushing back against the hate and the agents who seek to politicize.
That's true. And people online talking about, and again, I had no love for this man, but talking about his kids and saying, well, his kids are better off now. Well, that's their decision. You know what I mean? They didn't have a choice here. They've lost a father. He's not going to be there. They don't get to grow up, become 25, have debates with him around the table, decide they disagree with them. That's all been stolen from them. And
Tyler's, what were you going to say?
No, I'm just saying that's, we can't forget about that. It's kids are innocent in this. They were there. His wife was there.
Is that right?
Yes, they were at the event.
Oh, my God. Tyler's watching us live on X on our live stream presented by California Closet. Says this chat is making me, says your live chat is making me so sad. Says the lack of empathy in the world is a serious problem. People are sick. Greg's criticizing me, says inflame some more, Ryan. You know exactly what you're doing. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. Super chat Ken. Referencing. I was wondering if that might have flown under the radar. I guess not. Super chat Ken says, Jess, we'll see you get a little bit emotional. I was reading my cousin Andrew's comment there. I just know I've known him for 48 years, and for him to share like that is a big deal. He says, Ryan, seeing you get a little emotional is exactly the empathy that I admire. He says, I know you were thinking of your own young family in that moment. 100% I was. You can send us your thoughts on this. This is some of the comments here. I'm not going to read them because they are, I think, insensitive. But I also will say that I understand why many of you feel as strongly as you do. I understand why many of you are coming at this from a position that, quite frankly, is pretty harsh. Because you have felt that this individual was weaponizing people perhaps against your own community. And if that is the case, we want to hear from you. You can leave a comment on our YouTube episode. You can leave a comment on Spotify. You can hit us up on all of our social media posts at Real Talk RJ, and you can always send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com.
Edmonton is here because the river is here. So we care for it, protect it, share it. The water of the North Saskatchewan sustains all of us. It's a big job to treat and deliver it, river to tap, to over 1 million people, so you can have and enjoy a glass of the Sask. On tap, made local by Epcor.
Hey, we were thrilled to hear from Real Talkers that spent some time at the UCAN Youth Services open house the day that we told you about it in that Mark Carney interview. That was on the 10th of September. Our friends at UCAN opening the doors. This was a big deal for them to be able to show off their new location right here in downtown Edmonton, just south of Grant MacEwan University. This is a nonprofit charitable organization dedicated to helping young people out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. And that open house, I know I heard from Real Talker Maddie, who wrote into the show and just told us how impressed he is with what the team at UCAN is doing. The journey of taking a young person out of a harmful lifestyle. And in a lot of cases, this is intervention on gang recruitment. There's some really gut-wrenching realities around human trafficking. around houselessness, around food insecurity. But the employment opportunities that they're creating through these pre-employment education programs will just blow your mind. Together, we are building hope. And Real Talk is so proud to partner with UCAN Youth Services. You can learn more about what they're doing on their website, ucan.ca. Consider making a donation if you're able. And if you are an employer that's hiring entry-level positions, but you're looking for skilled and committed workers, then I want to make sure that you know exactly what UCAN is up to. They've got great partnerships with big employers like IKEA, like Tim Hortons, and you can learn more, again, on their website. That's UCAN Youth Services at ucan.ca. Man, these comments have just not slowed on this. And Emily G, by the way, referencing 9/11, says the day the world stood still. Isn't that the truth? Do you remember? I remember we were in a very interesting situation. I'll never forget this. Everybody had their own reality. I was waiting. I had been accepted to St. Polytechnic to go into their program. This is like the news broadcasting program called the CRTC or CTRC. Nobody cares. No, that's not even what it's called. I'm forgetting. Dude, I'm old. I graduated from SAIT in like 2004. But I remember I had been accepted. I had received my acceptance letter for like the next fall. And so, but I remember sitting there and my mom comes in. I was bartending, my job bartending at the time. I'd just moved back from Vancouver. I was staying with my parents. And I remember my mom coming into the room and telling me, waking me up and saying a plane had hit the World Trade Center. And so I went in, and the very first thing I did was turn on the TV, like millions and millions and maybe billions of people did that day, and saw it smoking. But at that time, do you remember? Everybody remembers. Of course, it was just like, was it an accident? Was it a miscommunication? What happened? Did the plane? Was there a pilot? Yeah. Was it pilot error? Was there like? Of course, we've had this conversation 1,000 times since it happened. I don't mean that disrespectfully. And then, of course, the second plane hit. Everybody understood. And as Emily describes it, the day the world stood still, I remember all day just standing in front of that TV. I wasn't even sitting on the couch. I remember standing, just watching it, just being like, the world is about to go to war. Like, this is an absolutely wild scenario. And then I had friends of mine that night. I'll never forget it. September 11th, 2001. We had plans in place to gather. They were visiting from out of town. I didn't know at the time that they were going to be announcing to me that they were expecting their first child, right? And so we go to this pub that typically Calgarians will know in South Calgary, the Barley Mill. For like 20 years, it was like this super popular pub. It was always packed, Johnny. They'd have like live music, and they're always packed, tons of people. And we had been in touch with each other. We said, well, yeah, let's still connect. We're never going to see, we don't see each other maybe once a year kind of thing. Let's still meet up. We go to the Barley Mill, and I will never forget, you could hear a pin drop in that place. Dead quiet. All of the TVs on September 11th coverage with like the TV volume turned up. People just, and it was like pretty meager turnout that night too. I think most people were staying home. I don't know. And I just remember we were sitting there watching the coverage, watching the news, and they were like, oh, and by the way, we're expecting. And it was kind of like, oh, congratulations. And it's obviously very exciting, but it was like, we've talked about that since, and their son now is like in his mid-20s, and he's graduated from post-secondary, and he's doing his thing. But I remember back to that day and just thinking like, gosh, as Emily says it, the day the world stood still, so well said. Never forget that. Yeah, I remember I was at my, at the time, my stepfather's home. I was asleep. It was like, I know it was like 11 our time because it was just after 9 that the attacks took place. But I remember, and I say this to this day, that it felt like an attack like on North America, not just the United States. I mean, an attack on the free world. Yeah, and I felt a bit of it because I'm a dually, but I remember specifically my stepdad nudged me on the shoulder, and I was like, what? Because I remember I was working night shift at that time at somewhere, and so I was trying to get some sleep, but he woke me up. I said, what? And he said these words, I'll never forget it. They're bombing us. Huh. He said, they're bombing us. So I think a lot of people felt like it that day, that it was just an attack on freedom, attack on the West, attack on North America, and a threat to our way of life. And I remember just going for drives with my friends for weeks after, and just listening to the radio at that time and hearing the stories of what happened, and just
feeling so connected to. I don't think anyone will ever forget who was alive and of an age who can remember that day will ever forget.
Well, it's like you said. I mean, if you were alive at Pearl Harbor, that December 6th will jump out at you. If you were like alive when JFK was shot, you're going to remember where you were when you remember that. Like who was it? Was it Nick? Someone referenced Walter Cronkite earlier today. I think it was Nick. But like that's one of his most notable, and this is saying something over a storied career of like 50 years, like arguably, probably the most legendary news presenter of all time. But when he learns live on air that JFK had died.
Oh yeah.
And that's like I just got chills as I'm talking about it. Like that was like that nation. That would have been a day that it stood still. Emily follows up. She says, I was working at Booster Juice after university. That's where she heard about it. Tracy says, remember telling her husband after the second plane hit, the whole trajectory of the world just changed. She said, I didn't know why, but it was clear when the second plane hit that it wasn't an accident. Yeah, no kidding. Miss KD was working in an office building downtown Calgary, says it was surreal that building after building after building went into lockdown and business absolutely ground to a halt. I mean, this was one of those days that we referenced. Do you remember? Like, when did we start talking about, like, when did Trump make the first 51st state comment or the imaginary line border comment? It's got to be about a year ago, right? Approximately about a year ago. What was one of the very first things that Canadians referenced at that time? One of the very first things that Canadians would reference was we fought alongside you in World War II. Then there'd be the little jab when people would say, when you guys decided to enter the mix, Canadians were there before. And then the other one was September 11th and how Canadian airports did everything that they could to accommodate these dozens, if not hundreds of American flights that were being diverted away from out of American airspace. And then what everyday Canadians, and most particularly on the East Coast and in the Maritimes, but not exclusively, what Canadians did to open up their arms to displaced Americans and other travelers that had nowhere to go because flights had been shut down because every plane was grounded, right? That was one of the things. It was that was when the Canadian and American relationship and the beauty of it and that very special nature of it was most on display. Was on September 11th and 12th and 13th of 2001 when Canadians did everything they could to help out their neighbors, strangers that found themselves in an unimaginable international situation.
And now, Ryan, doesn't that feel like a lifetime ago?
Dude, 24 years ago.
And just the way things are now, it's we've totally forgot how we were banded together that day. I'm not lying when it said like I said, that words my stepfather said to me, saying they're bombing us.
Yeah.
It felt like we were all together, and now we're miles from that.
Noob, try again. What's up, Noob? Says I was at JP High School on that day, 2,000 students plus teachers. And that's obviously the only thing everybody was talking about. He says he was in social studies and they rolled in the TV and we watched the live news in awe. I mean, that is to be in a social studies class when something like that happens. I mean, there's other situations you hear people tell stories like that. Schools. I mean, this is a tragedy. Different lines, obviously, different scenario. Of course, this was just a horrible accident. But how many young children in classrooms on those roll-in TVs? Remember, they'd roll in the TV and the VCR. How many young kids watched the Challenger explode live on TV?
Yeah.
Like no one's, that was 1986, right? Off the top of my head. Nobody's going to forget that. Gizmo says they were teaching, says I didn't even know it had happened until one of my students who was an American let me know, says it was a very difficult day. Erin says that she had a friend call him from Toronto, says at class that morning at MacEwan University, there were TVs all over campus. And Erin had an international relations class with the legendary, a good friend of mine actually, Dr. Chaldeans Mensa, says had a class with Chaldeans and he didn't cancel the class, and says, boy, did he ever learn about blowback. I can understand how classes would be canceled. I can also understand how it's important. Like this kind of like what we're doing today, to be honest with you, like when something happens, regardless of what prompted that scenario or where you land on the side of the issue or the surrounding circumstances, we firmly believe and will always believe that it's so important to be able to talk about it, to be able to gather in a platform or a forum that operates with integrity and with standards on discussion and hash out ideas that may make us uncomfortable, that may push us to consider alternative perspectives. And at the end of the day, we hope to solidify the ties that bind, the things that bring us together, the things that allow us to coexist. Have you ever seen that bumper sticker? It's one of my favorite bumper stickers. Growing up as an evangelical Christian, I would have seen that bumper sticker as a real threat, to be quite honest with you. But you've all seen it, right? The bumper sticker that's there, and it's the word coexist, but coexist is made up of all the different religious symbols, right? Like there's a cross in there. You've got like the Sikh imagery there. You've got Jewish imagery in there. You've got Muslim imagery in there, and many others. And I've come to really appreciate the spirit of that bumper sticker. Not to suggest that we think that everybody's always going to be able to get along and that at the end of every episode we tie it up nicely with a bow and we've all reached consensus. That is not the case. But we make a promise to you that Real Talk will continue to be here for as long as you continue to be here with us contributing. There it is, Johnny. Look at that, what you pulled up in such short order. Amazing job. The peace symbol there, of course, as we can see, men and women represented there. I bet you these days people would want more changes to this, right? They'd want to see more differences reflected on this. But the Star of David, obviously there's just a ton of imagery right there. That image that you're sharing on YouTube right now, doesn't that say so much? Let's go out on that today.
It's not, I like how you said that today. Like, it's never going to be all kumbaya and let's hold hands. But on days like this, when we look around the world, like I'm saying, not just what happened yesterday, not just what happened the day before with the school shootings, not just what happened in the weeks and the years, like Trump's attempted assassination, everything going on, and today being 9/11, today just feels like a day where we all have to condemn, like, things have gotten too crazy. Can we all just admit that? And can we all just admit that we don't need to blame one side we all need to chill out. Yeah. We all need to chill out a bit.
I've just got a text personally on my phone from Alberta's Minister of Children and Family Services, Cyril Turton, out of Stony Plain. He just says, I just wanted to pass along a couple of comments regarding the grieving I'm seeing from the Christian conservative community, not just here in Edmonton, but friends from across the province. He says, I've never seen such a sense of grieving, says the minister, as I am right now about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We do want to hear from you to talk at ryanjesperson.com. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to approach the flamethrower a little bit differently tomorrow if we're talking about the recent murder, the recent assassination of someone. Obviously I'm going to reflect the integrity that this show promises there, but I do want to remind you that every single Friday we give you a chance to blow off a little steam and to give us your hottest takes. Never going to ask you or tell you what to say or think, but I would imagine that more of the comments will be about our conversation with Mark Carney than Charlie Kirk. I want to respect the horrific nature of that crime. However, if you find that sweet spot, Real Talkers, like many of you do, to be able to deliver a message that is both respectable and powerful, then you've got the floor. And as mentioned, we are working on a big interview. It's not confirmed yet, so I'm not going to proclaim it, but we will expect to have a prominent Canadian conservative joining me to rebut or at least respond to some of the things that Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered right here on Real Talk in his exclusive with us on September 10th. In the meantime, friends, as we wrap, look at that. Johnny sharing with us the site at Ground Zero, of course, now that stands as a memorial to the thousands of people killed and millions of people impacted by that fateful day 24 years ago. If you can believe it, September 11th, 2001. Be well, friends. Be good to one another. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow for more Real Talk.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.